We're going to turn now to Michigan, where Oxford high school shooter Ethan Crumbley is back in the headlines.
On November 30th, 2021 is a day that has forever changed my life. It burns into my body like a cigarette burn. To the waste that took my daughter's life, that name will never come out of my mouth. That life will cease to exist to me, and just like trash, it will be forgotten. This is the life he chose. The suffering will come when he least expects it. The regret will consume you as you sit alone. Guilt would eat away at your soul. And when these emotions flood into your body like you're bleeding out, no one will be there to save you. No one will love you, and no one will come.
Now, family members of those affected by Ethan Crumbley's deadly rampage delivered very harsh words, as they should, during his sentencing. And the now convicted killer's facing life behind bars. That's what he's going to serve the rest of his life. Now, on the eve of his parents' trials, the Detroit Free Press is reporting that Ethan Crumbley is looking to appeal his sentence. But jury selection is beginning today for his mother, Jennifer Crumbley. She is the first of the two parents to stand trial in connection to the 2021 school shooting. Ethan's new attorney is planning to try to keep him from testifying in his parents' case. But if those efforts aren't successful, we're wondering, will he be called to testify during his parents' trials? Is there any utility in calling him? If you're the prosecution, let's bring back in our power panel. I want to kick this conversation off by talking about whether the juice is worth the squeeze. Bringing him in front of the jury, is it a necessary move? Can it do anything to help with the state's case, or should they just let this kid rot behind bars? Attorney John Phillips, I'd love for you to kick off this conversation for us, please.
I don't know whether to start with a tone of sadness or anger. Obviously, we represent the victims of some mass shootings, and in these cases where the guns are given to these killers are extremely, extremely important. That said, certainly the appellate process can toll somebody's Fifth Amendment rights. Why? Because the appellate court could reverse and remand back to the trial court, and therefore the Fifth Amendment right not to self-incriminate is still intact. So I think it's a smart play by Ethan's lawyers to try to keep the Fifth Amendment, try to keep him from being able to testify, also try to keep his freedom possible. Mm-hmm. But I think prosecutors certainly should look at calling him and kind of trying to predetermine what he's going to say through his attorneys. If it's going to be the Fifth Amendment the whole time, sometimes that's important to a jury too.
Right. No, excellent points there, John Phillips. Thank you for that. Yes, sometimes you may call a witness knowing they're going to take the fifth, but sometimes, as you said, John, it's great for the jury to just see that. And here, I want to clarify, I think this is important. We could have him called by the state or by the defense, potentially, depending on what way this goes. Matthew Mangino, to you next on this point, looking at it, putting on your criminal defense hat for us here, do you think there would be any utility for Jennifer Crumbley in her defense in calling her child?
Well, we know when Nathan was sentenced that he sort of attempted at least to absolve his parents from any responsibility, kind of said that he was a bad person, a terrible person, and he deserved to be in prison for life as the victims had wanted, and that his parents weren't responsible. But this is an unprecedented case. This is the first time that parents are being charged criminally for the conduct of a child who's a school shooter. It hasn't been done before. And because of that, the whole nation is watching. Is this, going to be sort of the play moving forward when there's catastrophic incidents like this? Clearly they purchased the gun. Clearly they knew their son was struggling with mental health problems. They were called to the school the day of the shooting. I mean, there's enough there to pursue this. And whether or not the son's testimony would make any difference, I'm not quite sure.
Mm-hmm. Matthew, great insight there. You're right. You wonder, the kid obviously is very disturbed, very dangerous, disturbed individual. How can we really rely on anything he says or trust him? I mean, he murdered 4 people. Joseph Scott Morgan, the death investigations, little reminders we're getting into this trial. This is going to be front and center, how these kids were murdered because these parents are being charged, with the same crime. I mean, the slaughtering of those children because of what they did. What their son did in their actions in providing him the firearm and not doing what they could to curtail the behavior. Oh boy. Professor Joe, what's that like? What's that like when you have to investigate the shooting death of a child?
It's highly complex, particularly in a scene, that's so, it's such a, if for those that have never been on a scene of a mass shooting, when you're an investigator, you think about it, but you don't really take the full measure of it until you've stepped back on the other side of the tape and you say, oh my God, I can't believe I just, bore witness to that as an investigator. But you have to sally forth and do your job. I think what is essential here, though, and the reason he could be key as a witness is the stitching together of the investigation. Remember, he's an extension of this family. The family, the parents, provided the weapons. And it's going to be, I think, important for the jury to understand that timeline. I'm speaking not as an attorney, obviously, but as an investigator. I would want to see that, to have them understand the family dynamic, what weapons were used, why were these platforms provided to him, these weapons platforms, how much time had he spent learning how to utilize that, utilize these weapons, what level of skill did they teach him, all of these sorts of intricacies relative to this. Now, I know he's proclaimed that he's a bad person and all of these sorts of things, but again, you're still talking about these 4 kids that are dead. They are dead, and we can't forget that, and violently died. And so we want to understand that. I think the jury will want to understand that as well.
Oh, you're absolutely right. That's a perfect way to end this segment so poignantly. Joseph Scott Morgan, you're right. We got to remember those victims. It is about these victims as we go into Mom's trial today. We'll see which way justice goes. A big thank you to you all for these discussions. Joseph Scott Morgan and attorney Matthew Mangino. We've got to let you both go goodbye, and a big thanks to you both for lending us your insight and your expertise. Attorney John Phillips is coming along with us for what is tipping the scales of justice. But here's what's coming up next in our spotlight.